Okay, hello everybody. I, Shiba Aslam Fehmi, on behalf of IMPAD, welcome you all in this very special Zoominar, personal chit chat on various issues pertaining to media. We know that media today, in every democracy, not just in India, but in every democracy, media has been either blamed or has been put on the spot for creating a lot of crises, for not handling the crisis, for not doing what it should be doing, and lot of talk about oligarchy and the amalgamation of media with it. So today we are going to talk about this issue with a very prominent journalist of our times, Ms. Seema Mustafa. She's a very well-known name. Recently, she has been elected as the head of the Editors Guild also, which is a very elating news for all of us journalists. And otherwise also, she has been in corporate media, and otherwise also, she is the head of the Citizen, and she is running this very important news and policy portal. And we look forward to the Citizen for many issues. So today we have with us Ms. Seema Mustafa. Thank you, Seema ji, for joining us today. One more thing I wanted to add that Seema ji was with us with Impar during its initial formative days for a very brief time period, but we got a lot of insights and lot of do's and don'ts from her. So that was really very nice of her and kind of her to be with us. Seema ji, I extend you a very, very warm welcome on behalf of Impar. I would like to have your opening remarks about the media and the crisis that the democracies are facing today.
So then it'll be interactive, right? So I was told about 20-25 minutes and then...
Right. Yeah.
Okay, fine. So I think I'm just going to speak briefly because it's important to be brief, and I would like to have an interaction and answer anything which I feel everybody who knows more about the media at one level, because you're the consumers of the media, will be asking. We all know that the media is extremely important. I mean, it is not called the fourth pillar of democracy without reason. It does not have a statutory status, but it is a very, very important pillar, which is there as a watchdog, and without which democracies find it difficult to survive. I mean, what we are seeing in America, say with Donald Trump, and his being able to get over 50% of the people on his side is also because he had a very strong section of the media with him. And the fact that he is not being able to succeed and Biden has been elected is also because the American media lived up to the challenge of the time. So we are here as watchdogs. We are watchdogs for the executive, judiciary, and the legislature. We are here to write without fear or favor. We are here as the profession to report the truth as the truth exists. We are not here to take sides, to play politics, to support one over the other. We are here to be as factual as we possibly can. इसमें मैं ये भी कहना चाह रही हूँ इसी वक्त I might forget later that there's all this thing about objectivity. The media is not objective. We are not supposed to be objective. We are partial, but we are partial on the side of the people. We are partial on the side of the Constitution of India. We are partial on the side of the oppressed, the victimized, the people who are at the receiving end. That is where our bias comes in, which I don't call a bias. It arises out of the protection of the Constitution and of democracy, where we stand by the people of the country. And we don't stand by the executive or governments, or if the judiciary does something wrong, or if the legislature doesn't function as it should. We were told when we were young reporters by editors, and I've been very, very fortunate to have worked with some of the top editors in the Pioneer, Patriot, Indian Express, amazing people. And we were told one thing which I always try to tell younger journalists. There's a lot of ma'am and sir today. We were always told that you only stand up for the President of India because he represents the state and the flag of India. You do not stand up for the Prime Minister or for ministers or for anybody who is elected. And we never did. At that time, Prime Ministers used to give press conferences. The media sat, and I have attended press conferences in London and in New York, and the media, the international media sat. It's only for the president that we stood up, which was a way of asserting that those people are under your watch. And you are reporting on them not as a subjugate, but as somebody who is equal or more. That was very, very important. And that is the kind of irreverence and yet respect that was ingrained in us by people who were professional editors and who ran the newspapers at that time. I joined in that whole post-emergency period. And that was an amazing period because at that time in the 1980s, there were two things that really defined it. As one of my chief of bureau in the Telegraph, Keval Verma, an amazing person, used to say that he was brought up in the area of, he entered journalism and grew up in journalism in the era of idealism, which was post-partition. And he said, I'm so sorry for you all that you all are growing up in journalism in the era of violence, the age of violence. 80s was the worst conflict ever in a different way. We had the insurgents, we had Kashmir, we had Assam, we had the Delhi violence, we had Punjab, we had Meerut, Malyana, communal strife across, caste strife across. I was never in Delhi. We were always out in the field covering violence of the worst kind. So, but at the same time, because we had come out of the emergency and because the media had crawled in front of government censorship at that time, the media was also very shamefaced. The editors who had crawled and accepted that censorship imposed by the government, and that is the only time when censorship was imposed by the government, I'm going to come to that. The media was very, very suddenly very self-righteous and very much for its rights. So the governments at that time found it impossible to control the media. In Bihar, Jagannath Mishra brought a bill. In Karnataka, Gundu Rao brought a anti-press freedom bill. And you had protests, you had us walking down Rajpath, you had demonstrations, and they all had to retract. So it was also a golden era of journalism, where journalism was free, where we were allowed to write what we want. We did not have editors trampling on our toes. You went out into the field, you got a good story, and the story was published. So it was another age. And you wrote the way you saw facts, and you wrote and you stood for those who were being oppressed, whether they were oppressed and shot dead in Meerut, Malyana, or whether they were killed in the droves, which the Sikhs were in Delhi, or whether it was the civil wars, which we saw in Assam. We were able to write very freely and frankly. So this was the second period where in journalism, suddenly there was government censorship. And I must say, and very unfortunately, that the media did not stand up the way it should have. But even so, there were newspapers. That time there was no television when it stood against the censorship. But as we grew, and you had barons also, but you had small business barons, in the sense that they had businesses, but for them their media business was a little different. So you had the jute baron in, say, Ramnath Goenka, and he ran the Indian Express. And you had the Birlas and the Tatas, the Birlas and the Jains and everybody running newspapers. But for a while, their interference in the running of the newspaper and what we reported was a little minimal. It wasn't as much as it has become. I remember I was doing a story on the Gandhi film at that time, and this is a very small very non-controversial kind of example that I'm giving you. And I was writing against the fact that India was giving 5 crores to the Gandhi film. This was the first time it was happening that we were giving a foreign venture money, whereas not supporting our own directors and our own people. So we were doing story after story after story, and there was this woman of theirs, representative of Richard Attenborough and all here, and she started calling me and sort of threatening me and saying, I'll tell Goenka because Goenka is a friend of mine. So I said, you can do what you want. So anyway, there was this big story one day again, and we were carrying it, our editors were carrying it on the front page all the time. And then she came and she met Goenka, and Mr. Shauri, Arun Shauri was one of the editors, Kuldeep Nair, Malgonkar was the chief editor. I mean, great people to work with at that time. And Shauri came into our editor's room and he said that Goenka is calling you. And that there was complete silence because Goenka never called a cub reporter, a young reporter who started out, means you're being fired. Anyway, we went in and this lady was sitting there. And then he joked around and he said all kinds of things and he didn't say anything seriously. And then he tells me that, you know, a lot of people, young girl, are going to come and tell you that they know me. But if you have your facts right, please go ahead with the story. Now, how much he meant that, I never felt any censorship in Indian Express. It was a reporter's paper. But the very fact that he said it, and that to a young reporter, was the most encouraging thing coming from the proprietor. And I don't see even one owner of any newspaper today uttering even half of what he said at that time. 1990s really started the change in television, in the media, because television came in at that time. And it was at that time that television grew with it, the big money grew. With it, the corporates came in from the front and the back. A lot of them were funding without declaring that they were funding, even today, and many of them funded directly. And the money was so big, the TRP drive was so big, the advertisement was so big, the salaries went another level, that suddenly the trade unions that supported journalists started dismantling. The salaries were replaced, the wage board, which protected journalists from being sacked, was dispensed with, and contract labor was brought in. And most of the journalists now working for all these fancy television channels that you guys tune in every night to are all on contract, including the major editors. They have 2-year contract or 5 years contract. And then we started seeing even in print that well-known editors came back to the office, I remember in Hindustan Times, and saw a sign outside saying, your services have been dispensed with, you can leave. Sacked overnight. 200, 300, when I joined NewsX, just before that, 300 kids, young people, journalists and all had been sacked and not even allowed to go back inside to pick up their belongings. So slowly, and we didn't say a word, journalists didn't say a word, they accepted this. And because they started accepting it, they are being treated today in the worst possible manner inside these newsrooms. There are abusive newsrooms, they are sacked without warning every other day, they're fearful of their jobs, there is no pension or gratuity or medical expenses attached to these jobs. The big guys get more money, but the young people don't. And the government discovered the joy of crony capitalism and realized that it can bring censorship in through the corporate. It does not need to come in directly. So if the media had suddenly become very aware of censorship from the emergency times and was constantly balking at the idea of government intervention, they didn't need to intervene because the corporates control the money, they control the job, and they control the news. One phone call from whosoever, not today. Please don't fool yourself that this has started today. This started a long time ago. And it started being fine-tuned from the 1990s. One phone call, and I can name the ministers in each government who made that phone call. there was usually this one man who would call the media and blank out news. I remember there was a huge meeting in Constitution Club on Kashmir. And for the first time, 14 political parties had come together to ask for the removal of AFSPA for the first time ever. It was huge news. Entire media was there because media knew it was big news. All the television channels were there. All the big newspapers were there. One phone call at night. And this is several years ago. This is maybe 10 years ago. And one phone call at night, and next morning, not a word. And at that night, not a word about the fact that this meeting had taken place. And over the years, censorship of the media has become complete. Because how much so more complete? Because then the editors started getting sacked and being replaced by representatives of the corporates. So the person who controls and is sitting there and handling everything is a man who's probably not even spent one day in news gathering and doesn't know A from B about the newspaper or mostly it's with television. In our time, editors could bring out the newspaper single-handedly. Suppose all of us were on strike, the editors were so professional that they could get the news and put out the newspaper, though it was hot-lead. These guys don't know anything about the news. They only know what the government doesn't want in the news or what their corporate masters don't want in the news, and they make sure it is censored accordingly. So the professional editor disappeared. Why is the professional editor so important? You all don't realize it. But it is because of the absence of the professional editor that we are completely in this mess. Because it was the editor who taught us ethics, who taught us values, who told us how to cover when we went in, who gave us the ethics and responsibility that goes with the job and the accountability, who told us that you don't stick mics in people's faces when they are suffering the worst loss, who told us how you handle news and how news. There's such a difference between an edited newspaper and a newspaper flung together. Even today, I would say the Indian Express, at least its front page, is more edited. And if you look at, say, the Times of India, it is not an edited paper. So you can see the difference in the newspaper, and that's where professional news journalists come in. Everybody is not a journalist. You can be a writer. But a journalist is as difficult a job of news gathering and skillful news gathering and verifying facts, which is learned, which is taught, and which comes with experience. So if I write 5 lines and say I'm a journalist, I'm not. I'm a writer. Maybe I'm a blogger. Maybe I'm somebody who's a columnist. But that doesn't bring me in the world of journalism. Journalism is what I've been trying to say, the ability to communicate the voice of the poorest of the poor factually to the corridors of power, which is why I say there's no objectivity in journalism. We stand on the side of peace. We stand on the side of the oppressed. We stand on the side of those who are, like I said earlier, at the receiving end. Journalists across the world have one creed, and I've traveled all across the world. We are anti-war. We are for democracy. We are anti-government, not anti-country. No matter how much people try to mix the country with the government, it isn't. We are anti-government because we have to be anti-government, even if we secretly support that political party who is in power at any particular point in time. Because we have to question the government. We've got to be watchdogs on the government. We've got to show up the government. We've got to tell the people what the government isn't doing right. And we have to do this not through comment, through facts, through stories, through reportage, of going into the field. It's a very skillful set, how we have beats, how we cover government, how you move from reporting to the bureau to political reporting. It's all a very set, trained pattern. So we are literally looking at what I call today, and now because the slide started and we as the media were not able to prevent it, and you as the citizen did not care, and they, as the executive and the legislature, accelerated it along with the corporates, we are today in a position where we are witnessing what I will call the bastardization of the media. Because we have moved many steps forward with this information revolution. We have moved from not reporting the news to actually reporting lies. Earlier, we used to report the first stage, which I'm talking about, the news as it was. Then we started hiding the news and reporting selective news. And today, we are not even only reporting selective news, we are actually lying to you. We are giving you fake news. And the news where the people are concerned, we are completely hiding it. And we've become mouthpieces of the government. And we are propagating that the government is a country. And I'm not talking of just India. It's happened in other countries as well. The government is different. It's a set of elected people who have to be questioned. The country is different. It's the constitution, it's the flag, it's represented, the symbol is the president. And this is a difference that has to be inculcated in journalism. But unfortunately, we are blurring the lines. And we are allowing you, and we are projecting the government as the country. And by doing so, we are doing a great disservice to democracy. Because democracy thrives on this essential difference. Democracy is the legislature, the executive, and the judiciary are there to protect democracy. Just like we are there to ensure that they do their job. And how well we do our job ensures a better democracy. But when the institutions start flagging and the media, which is supposedly independent, starts decaying with them or flagging with them, then we are doing a greater and very great disservice to the people. And I think I will quote Malcolm X here. And it's one of my favorite quotes, where he says that if you're not careful, the newspapers will have you hating the people who are being oppressed and loving the oppressor. And that's where the media has actually brought us.
Yes.
And I actually blame ourselves for it. Because when we didn't, I remember Advani, L.K. Advani said it after the emergency, but it's an interesting quote nevertheless, where he said, where you were asked to bend, you crawl. Today we are not, we have been asked to crawl, and we become even worse. We're slithering. So I feel that where you are concerned, as the people, you have to become far more discerning about your choices. You don't have to see the television just to revile it. You can keep your television channels off. You can stop going and cooperating with media which is not acting like the media. You can start supporting those who are trying against all odds to report the news. You can start using information as a weapon, where you read not one source news, but you read 50 sources to know what the news is. If you see one channel today, no matter how great you think that channel is, or read one newspaper or one digital thing, you'll never know the full news. And you'll never know all the aspects of news. Because news is being so twisted and distorted that it is very difficult for the layperson to know what is the truth and what is the lie. And the only way you, because you're well-read and you know, and you come from the more privileged sections of society, you have to be the people who then spread the right information. And you can only do that if you're able to sift the wheat from the chaff and the truth from the lie, and actually understand for yourself what is and what isn't. Like the farmers' struggle today. The protests that they are coming. It's coming through the blockades, the blockade on the media. Despite that, the news is coming out. But there's so much more that is not coming out. And you must be informed, because it is one of the largest struggles of our times. And if you don't know it, how are you going to talk of democracy? if you shut your eyes and your blinkers and wear blinkers. So I'll leave it at this, and hopefully there'll be a question. Thank you so much. Thank you for inviting me.
Yeah, Seema, so you said the bastardization of media or press. You talked about those heydays where you worked with those stalwarts and the way you were trained in this business, and also how the media has collapsed in front of the power. Um, I want to know. You must have noticed this statement from Amit Shah ji that we are not here to govern, we are here to change the nation. And he was hinting at the paradigm shift of the idea of nation, the idea of India. And we have been since then seeing the attack on the idea of India that we were inculcated with and that we were, taught and talked. So I want to know that is media consciously succumbing to this paradigm shift, or it is just some kind of compulsion, some kind of majburi that they have to do it, because corporate media ultimately is owned by the cronies of the power, and cronies of the power are ultimately going to, whosoever is the editor, whosoever is the senior reporter, bureau chief, whatever, ultimately, just like the lateral entries in the UPSC and in other services, we have seen lateral entry into the media since long, as you rightly said, since 90s. And from the LPG project, liberalization, privatization and globalization, we have seen this change coming in media as well. Do you think it is a paradigm shift, or it is just the crony capitalism?
No, I mean, this is a very difficult and it's like another paper altogether. It's of course, it's a paradigm shift. You've got a government that has an ideology which knows where it's going and it knows where it wants to go. It's very clear. To be fair to the BJP and the RSS, they know what they are doing. They've always said what they are doing. The books are available. The doctrine is available. Their heroes are available. It's our fault that we don't read it. It's all out there in the open. But there is always, whenever ideologies come in any country in the world, there's always resistance. And there is an idea of India which people in India accept as laid down by our founding fathers. And there is a constitution of India framed by our founding fathers. It is that constitution of India on which this entire parliament has taken oath and come into parliament. Everybody who's elected has had to take oath and come in to protect the constitution of India. That is their oath. So we as a journalist, for me, that is the yardstick. And for me, anything that, as a journalist, anything that comes in the way of that constitution, which is still our idea of India, is something that has to be exposed and written about so that people know and people who care take a position. So to say whether it's a paradigm shift, no, I don't think it's a paradigm shift. I think the BJP has always stood for what it is showing you today. I don't think yet India's idea of India is definitely challenged, but I believe that it's challenged very openly now, but it was covertly a challenge for a long, long time. I think that when I've tried to trace how the Indian media went down, we were aware of it. We were aware of the sackings. We were aware of the controls. We were aware of how our news was being censored, but we did not do anything about it. And because of which, this is where we are completely controlled. And not just controlled. The people you see jumping in front of you every night are not their own masters. They are the puppeteers. They are being controlled by those who are holding the strings. The strings could be of power, the strings could be of money, or the strings can be of both. These are not independent journalists who are screaming and shouting every night and putting up a show. These are controlled journalists. So, there is a level of control. which is what is very, very worrying to most of the media. You see the 5, but they're the 500 behind. There's the working journalists, there are the small provincial newspapers, there are the regional papers, there are papers in Delhi, there are channels all over, there is on the internet, people who are trying to stick to the profession and trying to prevent the profession from being abused. Some are, so that the profession is not misused. And it does not subvert democracy, but it actually strengthens democracy.
Yeah. You said that journalists are against war. I remember, I think just a year back, there is a very prominent journalist who keeps asking question on behalf of the nation. He would bring in a survey. Should we go for a war, full-fledged war with Pakistan or not? It was just like फरमाइशी गीतों का program बिना का संगीत माला, where he would ask कि कौन सा song सुनना चाहेंगे, कौन सा गाना सुनना चाहेंगे. It was just like that. Should we go for war, full-fledged war, conventional war with Pakistan or not? And no body of media, no editors guild, no broadcasters association, nothing, press council or anything, nothing was questioning this approach to the question of war. So I remember this incident. It was a classic incident event in media where we are ready, which tells that we are ready to accept everything. Now, when we see since last more than a year, when we see so many people's movement being labeled as anti-India, being labeled as either jihadi or khalistani or something like that. I mean, the amalgamation of capitalism and priest class, which Shahuji Maharaj Phule has said that Shetji Bhatji combination in media is having its heyday right now. Anything that people are asking for, they have to label it, and they label it in a manner where it has become anti-Hindutva, it has to become anti-Bharat, and then everything is sorted out on through debates, through false narratives. How are we? I mean, how come they are not scared of the people of India? The agitating people of India, even this farmers' agitation we have seen, the way they try to label it as a Khalistani movement supported by the jihadis or the Tukde Tukde gang or whatever. So, I mean, from where do they get this kind of strength and this kind of conviction that they can go against the masses like this and nothing will happen to them? Masses will not retaliate. Masses will not even boycott them.
They don't retaliate. Where the masses retaliate? Newspapers have been writing all kinds of things. We supported the emergency. We brought in the emergency. Who retaliated against the media? The people who supported the emergency grew to be major editors.
So
you're taking a sort of a moralistic, judgmental stance, which is not how journalism defines itself.
So at the end of the day, it is people's responsibility to respond rightly to the media reports also, to the media angle also, to the kind of discourse and narrative they are going to play out to the whole world, to the nation, that even Justin Trudeau is coming in and supporting, and these guys are saying that this is something that is, anti-India and anti-government and all those things. So we are already halfway into the program, and I want everybody to raise their hands digitally. It will be very easy because otherwise the screen is so full. There are several screens and we will not be able to take up. Please raise your hands digitally so that we can take up your questions. I can announce the name and then you can speak. Please unmute yourself when you are speaking. You are talking about the question. And is there anybody from the IMPAR who is taking care of the raised hands? Angela, are you there? Or I can also do it at my end. Yeah. Please raise your hands digitally and then we will start taking up the question. So, Seema, would you like to respond to what I said?
You responded yourself, Shiba, so not really a question. I think, I think you answered it yourself.
Yeah. So after this series of movements, people's movement that Delhi is witnessing, that we are seeing, we see that media is trying to kind of do all that lipapoti. Right now, as we were starting our this program, there was this news that government has given an option of forming a committee in which it will be bringing in farmers also, and there has not been any major breakthrough into the so. The agitations continue. The farmers have decided to continue with their agitation. At this juncture, how media is going to, capture this moment, because this corporate and priesthood coming together, this Bhatji and Shethji, as Jyotiba Phule has very effectively, given us the formula long back. This Bhatji and Shethji coming together in media has caused all this. I welcome you all and ready to take up the your questions. Brigadier Zamiruddin Shah Saab has raised his hand. Brigadier Saab, please go on.
Yes, I'm General Shah.
General Shah, sorry.
It's always a pleasure to listen to you and read what you write. I am aware that the media, all the channels, have led forward their scouts to find out bearded Muslims who will make an ass of themselves on the television. We've seen them often enough. And they give a wrong impression about the community. Why don't you identify knowledgeable Muslims who can represent, and let's make it clear that any fellow who talks on the talks on the media would be excommunicated. I mean, these people are a nuisance to the community and to the country as a whole. I am aware that Empower is trying, but I think you've got a wider network. Why don't you do that job?
You know something about this bearded person coming in every time, and this is again not new, General Saab, this is an old story where we used to always protest and write about it, and particularly with television, whenever there was, say, any violence, communal violence, they would bring in conservative from all the religions and completely clamp out the secular voice. So you would not have the secular voices from the Hindus or the Muslims or the Christians, whoever were involved. You always had those who could come onto television and scream and shout and raise their ratings. They are not going to do any different today. It has become even worse. The whole idea of feeding into a certain narrative can only be fed, and that is the narrative which the corporate-owned media is following, and the narrative which is set by governments as they go along, some more hard, some softer, but the same narrative at different levels, which is to portray the Muslim in a particular manner, to feed into the Muslim is a traitor jargon, and or is an extremist, or is intolerant, or is somebody you cannot understand, or he's somebody who holds very rigid views. And if we bring persons like you, you're going to shatter that, right? So we've got to bring in those conservatives to keep that narrative alive and to keep feeding into the larger agenda. This is not, it's not only about journalism. We are looking at wheels within wheels, conspiracy within conspiracies. When we talk about crony capitalism, when we talk about cronies and the nexus between the cronies, it is a very deeply embedded nexus with profit at the end of their rainbow. And that profit is power, it's subversion, it's money, it's control. And whatever the narrative that has been formed, and what you think is just of that evening, कि आज उस anchor ने कर दिया, कल कोई और anchor ने कर लिया, it isn't that. It's all part of a plan and of a design. And that is a certain narrative that a certain section of the media is pushing. So they do not have space for you. You can break your back on it, They don't have space for you. You will not be given this space. The ones who will give you the space are anyway the ones who are, who are trying to break this narrative.
Okay, thank you. Keep up your good work.
Yeah, now we have Mr. Hassan Riaz Saab. Hassan Saab, kindly unmute yourself.
It's very surprising, or quite surprising, that how rapidly and quickly the institutions of the state that were supposed to provide checks and balances to the ruling government, whichever government it is, they have all collapsed and have been decimated. Now, as you might have read, Arnab Khaitan in his very influential abstract recently, the professor at law at Oxford, said that about killing a constitution by 1,000 cuts. And it's not been happening more recently, it's been happening for a long, long time. Now, the question is that given where we are, there are, of course, a lot of reasons why we are where we are, the democracy that we called hallowed has been hollowed out. And in this scenario, when the entire nation is in a bear hug, what hope do we have of releasing ourselves from this bear hug and preventing our country to go down the drain as it would if we are not able to restore democracy? And as you rightly say, that this is not happening by chance. It is a very deliberate strategy that was enunciated a long time ago, which is being implemented very, very effectively today. So what chance do we have of actually restoring our democracy and our way of life and what we call the idea of India?
You started, and I think the answer really lies there when you said that how the institutions of democracy have been so badly damaged, which are the institutions, which are the constitutional institutions, which are again the judiciary, the executive, and the legislature. Any political party that comes to government at the center has control over these because it has a say in determining the composition of these. Either it has been elected to full power, or it can through the judiciary exercise control, and of course the executive is itself. What is not in their control is also a very big section, which is what we should look at the real checks and balances when there is the present seems dark, and that is civil society. That's the people of India. That's the media, which unfortunately is not in that statutory lot and could exercise an amazing role, and is trying to in smaller ways. And there is the opposition. And there's the people. And this is a pretty big whole. It's a fairly holistic lot if they were able to get their act together. So on one side, you have a government or a ruling party, and today more so, maybe less so earlier, but always trying to get full control over the institutions of democracy. And the other side is the opposition and the civil society and others who are supposed to provide the resistance and the check and balance to absolute power. Unfortunately, now this is something, what do? The media has cracked, the opposition has cracked, or is cracking, or is not being able to get its act together, or it has not understood the seriousness of the problem, or it doesn't want to understand the seriousness of the situation. And it is the people who are taking the lead. So today is the first time in my living memory as a journalist where the people are leading without leaders, and the leaders are following. So whether it be the CAA protests, or whether it be the farmers today, or whether it be small little bursts of protests here and there, in Tamil Nadu, in Punjab, in Hyderabad, in West Bengal, they are all led by the people. And it's the opposition that's following. So there has to be which is why I said for people like you and us, weapon is knowledge and information. And it is through the understanding of what is going on today to carve out the counter, check and balance on the statutory and the constitutional bodies, which are already not in our control and will not be if you have a strong government. But you have this huge mass which is divided, which is all over the place, which is not seeing, missing the wood for the trees. But it does exist, and it's a very powerful check and balance. I know it doesn't answer your question, and I know that it hasn't come together. But the possibility of it coming together does exist. And in that possibility lies the remedy or the solutions that you're looking for.
The fault, dear Brutus, lies not in our stars, but in ourselves, that we are underlings. The question is, how do you give invertebrates a spine? I mean, God made us with a spine and we lost it. Now the question is, yes, the masses, but they are so hounded, they are so scared, they are so afraid. How many of those have a spine to stand up today? They're all crawling all over the place. It's like a can of worms.
To speak as a journalist, I would say that we are the ones who are scared and we are afraid, and the people who feel we've got more to lose, we're the better off. It's the masses who are out on the roads facing the water cannons, getting beaten by batons, getting arrested, being put into jails, being charged with sedition. And for every boy who's been arrested under sedition, 5 more kids have stood up and they're not getting cowed down. We have to look at the positive, and the positives are huge. The negatives are huge, but the positives are huge. This country has got a certain kind of resilience with which it fights back. And it is coming from the youth. It's not coming from people who are better to do or people like us who are older. It's coming from the young people. And the young people might not necessarily be in that framework which we recognize. But they are in the other framework. They're not in a framework, but they're there. They work together. I mean, in CA, everybody says that there was somebody behind CA, but there wasn't. All kinds of people who were there, and every day somebody was having something on the stage without any leadership. Because there's a different way of functioning, and we have to understand that functioning if we are looking at the future. They're not going to function like us. I'll give a small example. I used to always say, when in the newspapers, when the young reporters would come, have you read the paper? Have you got the newspapers? Because we are used to getting 10 newspapers at home. I used to read them early in the morning over a cup of tea and bring it back. Then I realized it's not that you don't have to read the newspaper at 6 o'clock to be knowledgeable. They come and they would put on their computer and read everything, not that one newspaper. So while we read that one newspaper or two and felt we have read the editorial comment, these young people under 40 today are all reading everything. So if the farmers' struggle interests them, they would have read every source possible about that struggle and will know more than you and me. These are all very big pluses, which is what one had to understand the younger generation. So while there is, so it's difficult, but it is, if you're going to live in India and time has a long span, despite the cruelty, say, that we have seen, and we've seen it on a larger scale today, but when I covered, like I said, in the 1980s, the violence in Assam and in UP and in Bihar, the caste violence, they had felt it then. And the ones who covered it in the 60s, they had felt it then. So that there is a certain resilience which we have to strengthen. You and I have to strengthen by not accepting the lie and by trying to find out the truth. So when they say that this guy is a pappu or this guy is an idiot, and I'm not talking of Rajiv Gandhi, I'm just giving Rahul Gandhi, I'm just giving an example, find out, is he really? Because I was seeing in the CNN, and I thought it was very interesting what one of the experts said about Trump. He says he comes in and he throws mud at the opposition and he pulls it down. And the media, Fox News, does it with him. And you all accept it. So he sullies that opposition's image to be effective. And because you start rejecting that opposition, he brings in the fear factor. And with the fear factor, he cows the other lot. And at the end of it, has a much bigger support than you would have thought a person like Trump would. Because people don't read, people don't inform themselves, so people are not able to counter. And when you watch that rubbish every night, we don't allow my reporters to watch television or to cover anything from television. It's a complete no. It doesn't come on in my house and in my office. And that journalism is not journalism. That is propaganda distorting your mindset. And please understand that. For news, go digital. Read all the news that is there in the world. It's all available.
Sometimes I'm really tempted to ask this utopian question that can we separate corporate from media and all those things, and can we do away with the media and still have the democracy? But we all understand that it
But then Shiva, you have to work like us as the citizen. We didn't take any corporate funding. I haven't taken any political funding. We have rejected all because it all came with strings attached. But then we pay our reporters, we don't pay our experts. Our experts, I think General Shah would know, when they write for us, we never pay them because we take it as part of our thing. We ask them for money from time to time to keep us afloat. It's only the young reporters we pay. None of us take a salary. That's not really the ideal way of functioning and expanding. You can't. You need some money and some support.
True. So we have more hands raised here. Minu Jain is going to ask another question. Minu, please come.
Is my audio unmuted?
Yes.
Yeah. I have got a suggestion, or you can say it's not a question, in fact, and whether it is viable or not, I am not so sure, but I put my suggestion forward. We have seen that just today, Canadian Prime Minister has made some statement on farmers' agitation in India, and this has rattled the government of India very badly. And of course, I am very happy about it. So my suggestion is, can we persuade the international media? Can we use some kind of networking that they hold discussions regarding the current situation of democracy, the bad situation of democracy in India, and about just now, like CNN, CAA, NRC happened, and there was a news on international media, but no discussions as such were held over there. So my suggestion is, can big journalist names like you can use your contacts or networking to persuade them to hold discussions on this internal situation of India, because in my opinion, without external intervention, there is no remedy to the present situation. You understand what I mean to say? I can't say everything on this platform, but external intervention now at present in the form of media, the international media intervene, or they discuss about our situation. So what do you say?
I know enough about the media to know that the media doesn't like to be influenced, the good media that you're talking about.
Okay.
So there is, just like I would not take kindly to somebody calling from the US and saying, hey, write something on Trump, what is happening. I don't think anybody in any part of the world, because we are supposed to follow the world. You've had the New York Times writing a lot about India. You have the Washington Post, the Economist, all the major, the Guardian, the Atlantic. These are all sort of very, very heavy news interventions, and they have carried articles, they've carried news, they've been covering us on a fairly regular basis, just like we cover them. There's a lot of interest in India. It's growing interest now. There's more and more being written about India. Once it was very positive, now it's not that positive. So it is, it's something that the media itself picks up. You don't have to influence the media. It's, at least I don't believe we have to, actually.
Yeah. Musharraf Ali Sahab, please raise your question, and you have to unmute yourself. मुशर्रफ अली साहब, आपकी आवाज बंद है मुशर्रफ साहब।
जी हाँ, मैं सीमा साहिबा से मतलब ये जानना चाहूंगा कि ये जो मेरा जो मानना है इसके अंदर जो मीडिया का जो ये सब हमें नजर आता है कि ये एक तरह ये आर्ट ऑफ प्रोपेगेंडा है और इसको औजार की तरह वो इस्तेमाल कर रहे हैं। आप देखेंगे कि दो घटनाओं की तरफ मैं आपका ध्यान दिलाना चाहूंगा। एक तो कैम्ब्रिज एनालिटिका वाला, तो जिसके तहत जो है सूचनाओं के जरिए फेसबुक से ये सोशल मीडिया से सारी सूचनाएं लेने के बाद जो है और उसका इस्तेमाल होता है, टारगेटेड सूचनाएं पहुंचाई जाती हैं और लोगों का परसेप्शन जो है 1 महीने में ही बदल दिया जाता है। हाँ, तो एक मकसद जो है सत्ता हासिल करने का और सत्ता हासिल करके फिर अपनी जो इकोनॉमी है उसे लागू करने का वो पूरा करते हैं। भारत में हम देखते हैं कि कोबरा पोस्ट का जो एक स्टिंग ऑपरेशन है जिसमें आचार्य अटल बनकर वो जाते हैं स्टिंग करने वाले और उन्होंने वो सारे मीडिया हाउसों से बात करते हैं और वहां तय हो जाता है कि किस तरह से धीरे धीरे मुसलमानों के बारे में जो है पहले सॉफ्ट हिंदुत्व का सामने लाया जाएगा और उसके बाद उसे हार्ड कर दिया जाएगा। तो ये एक जो है बहुत कामयाब जो है उनके लिए। अब हम डेमोक्रेसी के अंदर जो मॉरल है पत्रकारिता का उसमें हम बात कर रहे हैं, लेकिन इसका जो है उन पर कोई असर नहीं क्योंकि उनके लिए तो एक साधन है। अब मैं आपको बताऊं कि किस तरह से ये उनके लिए परसेप्शन कैसा बदलते हैं कि लोगों की, किसानों की, मजदूरों की, बेरोजगारों की, नौजवानों की समस्याएं हैं, लेकिन वो इस तरह से डेमोनाइजेशन मुसलमानों को करते हैं कि एंड टाइम पे वो जो भीड़ भी नजर आती है कि विपक्ष के अंदर, वो भीड़ जो है वोट में नहीं बदल पाती और उनकी समस्याओं की जगह जो जहन के अंदर लोगों की भरी हुई है उस समस्याओं को, जहन को खाली कर देते हैं और उसकी जगह जो है मुसलमान का डर जो है वहां बैठा देते हैं। तो ये उनकी एक कामयाब चीज है जो पूरी दुनिया में चल रही है। सिर्फ एक मैं अपनी बात ये कहना चाहूंगा कि इससे हम कैसे लड़ें। मैं एक उदाहरण दूंगा सिर्फ आखिरी बात अपनी बात कहने के लिए कि आप देखेंगे किसी से भी आप पूछ लीजिए इसका क्या साइकोलॉजिकली असर पड़ता है आम आदमी पे। आप किसी से पूछ लीजिएगा कि नॉर्थ कोरिया का जो वो है, जो वहां का शासक है, राष्ट्रपति है, वो क्या है, तो एकदम उसके जहन से निकलेगा अरे वो तानाशाह जिसने अपने चाचा को गोली मार दी, जिसने कुत्तों के सामने डलवा दिया। जबकि ये पूरा झूठ है। हर हफ्ते एक जो है खबर जो है बाकायदा प्रायोजित तरीके से हर जगह भेजी जाती है और छपती है वो। तो इससे परसेप्शन, ये एक आर्ट ऑफ प्रोपेगेंडा है। इससे लड़ने के लिए इसका से तलाश है, ये हमारे लिए चैलेंज है। तो हम तो डेमोक्रेसी के अंदर तो उस तरह की बात करेंगे कि उसके दायरे में जो है वो आए, लेकिन वो आएंगे नहीं। उसके लिए आपको जो है जो नैरेटिव वो तय करते हैं उसके पैरेलल आप अपना नैरेटिव कैसे, किस तरह से, वो तो मैदान तैयार करते हैं, हम खेलने लगते हैं उसके पक्ष में या विरोध में, लेकिन आप उसकी जगह कैसा अपना मैदान तैयार करें जिसमें वो खेलें। ये सवाल है, ये मैं मालूम करना चाहूंगा सीमा जी से कि इससे इस पर कुछ अपने ख्यालात का इजहार करें।
आपने खुद ही अपने आप को आंसर कर दिया कि अगर कोई मैदान तैयार कर रहा है तो आप उसमें खेलिए मत, आप अपना जो कर रहे हैं वो करते रहिए संजीदगी से और ईमानदारी से, वही उसी में लड़ाई होती है। अब जरूरी ही नहीं है कि खेलिए, आदमी करता रहेगा, कब तक करेगा अगर हम लोग ना खेलें उसमें। मीडिया का मैं हमेशा कह रही हूं कि आज मैंने आपको ट्रेस किया है कि किस तरीके से मीडिया क्या थी और हल्के हल्के क्या हालत में आ गई। आज मेरा तो मानना है कि ये सरकार होती या कोई और सरकार होती, हम लोग का जो डिटेरियोरेशन मीडिया का है वो वैसे ही होता। और उस अंत पे हम आ गए हैं कि जो भी आप हमसे कहिए कि नाचिए तो हम नाचते हैं, कूदिए तो कूदिए, और उसके जो रीजंस हैं और उसके जो वजह है वो भी मैंने आपसे शुरू में बात की उसके बारे में। तो आई थिंक कि मीडिया का जो आप नैरेटिव कह रहे हैं कि मीडिया इज नॉट हियर, कि हम लोग यहाँ नहीं है, ये कोई इस चीज में पढ़ने के लिए, हम अगर अपना काम संजीदगी से करें और हम ईमानदारी से रिपोर्ट्स लाएं और हम गरीब के लिए बोलें और हम गांव में जाएं और हम डिस्ट्रिक्ट्स में जाएं और हम दिल्ली के कॉरिडोर्स में ना बैठे रहें और हम कोई एमपी या मिनिस्टर से घर ना लें और किसी से खाना ना लें और किसी से पैसा ना लें, और एक ईमानदारी से, जैसे पहले भी रूरल लोग ओन करते थे, जैसे जेन और जो कंपनीज थी, पर कुछ तरीके से हम लोग को एक छूट थी और एक छूट हम लोग ने घसीटी थी और ली थी उन लोगों से। अगर हम लोग यूनाइट हो जाएं और कायदे से काम करें तो वो अपने आप ही में एक दूसरी ऑल्टरनेटिव नैरेटिव हो जाती है। मुझे नहीं, आई डोंट थिंक कि मीडिया को कोई तलवार उठाने की जरूरत है, हमारा कलम ही तलवार है। तो उसके लिए स्पेस चाहिए, उस स्पेस के लिए हमें लड़ना है, कि कोशिश करनी है कि हमें वो स्पेस, अगर हमारा 1 इंच आज है तो कल 6 इंच हो और 6 इंच के बाद फिर 1 फुट हो जाए। उसके लिए क्या स्ट्रैटेजी होनी चाहिए और किस तरीके से हम लोग को करना चाहिए, इस पे बहुत संजीदगी से बातचीत होनी चाहिए। एडिटर्स कर रहे हैं बात, लोग बात कर रहे हैं, पर इस पे अभी तक हम लोग के पास कोई सुझाव आया नहीं। हम लोग सिटीजन की तरह नहीं चला सकते हैं अखबार को, हमें पैसा कुछ हद तक तो चाहिए इसको आगे बढ़ाने के लिए, इसकी रीच के लिए। ये पैसा कहाँ से आए? कोऑपरेटिव्स बनाए, कोऑपरेटिव्स में उसकी भी बातचीत हुई है। मतलब ये आसान सोल्यूशन नहीं है, पर एक इंडिपेंडेंट मीडिया बनना बहुत जरूरी है। कल ये सरकार जाएगी, दूसरी आएगी, दूसरी जाएगी, तीसरी आएगी, हमेशा जो भी आया है उसकी कोशिश यही रही है कि इस मैसेंजर को कंट्रोल करो, मीडिया को कंट्रोल करो। जैसे कह रहे हैं कि हु कंट्रोल्स द मीडिया कंट्रोल्स द माइंड। ये जो हमारी रूलिंग क्लास है और रूलिंग एस्टेब्लिशमेंट है, इसको इसका एहसास बहुत पहले हो गया। हम लोग को मीडिया के अंदर ये एहसास नहीं था, इनको एहसास था कि मीडिया को अगर हम कंट्रोल करेंगे तो हम अपने नेशन के माइंड को कंट्रोल कर सकते हैं काफी हद तक। तो इन लोग ने तो कंट्रोल कर लिया, अब हम लोग उससे निकल नहीं पा रहे। तो इसके लिए एक अवेयरनेस है, एक थिंकिंग है कि एक इंस्टीट्यूशनलाइज्ड मीडिया हो, दैट रिगार्डलेस ऑफ गवर्नमेंट, जो भी सरकार आए, हम उसके कंट्रोल के बाहर रहें। कैसे होगा? सोल्यूशन नहीं है, बातें हैं, वो सोल्यूशन नहीं।
Yes,
ये जरूरी है।
Yes. Najmuddin Ahmad Farooqi sahab, please have your question.
Sabha, first I congratulate you for becoming president of GIL. And
Unmute कर लीजिए.
Yeah, he's unmuted.
yeah, and as General Saab has said, it's always nice to listen to you or read to you wherever you write. But I want to apprise you first one thing. I've written an article on your grandmother, the great grandmother. She's the most illustrious lady. I was so impressed, and I found her story very relevant for the present generation or young generation. And it was in a news portal. I don't know whether you have seen or not, but I would request you, if you don't, then I can forward it.
I'd love to read it. जी.
Somehow
I can help.
Yeah, I have read that piece. I have also read that piece. Yeah, I remember.
तो मुझे भेज दीजिएगा.
Yeah, I'll do that.
I mean, if you can just on Google, you write her name, that will open. It is on Smart Times. Smart Time news portal. I mean, you can yourself see, or if you can share your phone number.
Yeah.
So all the things you have already answered, and I don't have any question to ask, but there is a viewpoint of mine which has already, when you have replied almost, just wanted to know your views. Right now, the Muslim community, whether the most elite class or the intellectuals, whosoever they come on the mainstream media, as we all know, because the narrative has already changed. So the mullah or the topi wala and all these people, I don't know they were worth yesterday or they are worth today. But in the changed situation in the mainstream media, should we be, for the time being, should be on the back seat? I mean, or you can say in a second row. We should not be in the first row, unless and until a person has got full grip on the subject and the intellect and the tact to speak, because the situation is so delicate, and people like you who are so professional, and you have been so senior a journalist, the way you have spoken, say, for 20, 25 minutes, I mean, the most intellectual people who are not a trained journalist, I don't think that they can speak so fluently. And you have not used anybody's name. You have not used, I think, even BJP, but you have said everything. So with these caution, if we can go on, then it is fine. Or otherwise, for the sake of the change of politics, because as you have already said, it was the fourth pillar. But fourth pillar has got no executive power, like executive, like legislature, like judiciary. So directly, media has no role to influence on the governance. But the governance is so authoritarian. So in any case, the opposition is so weak, unless there is an opposition in the parliament or outside the parliament. Civil society is also becoming so weak. The secular voices have gone down. So what the Muslims should do, I mean, as you have said, you do your own job. You see education of your children, the impart, doing the job for the change of perception of the Muslim community. So otherwise, this is my just a view, and I want to know your view. How should Muslims stand today in this regard? Thank you.
When I first started, when I was younger, I would look at all these bichara Maulvis and others, and always पढ़ाने आते थे और हम लोग पढ़ते थे, उनका मजाक करते थे, और वो बेचारे आते थे और खाना एक थे जो मुझे मालूम, हम लोग को जब छोटे थे कि हम वो हमेशा भूखे आते हैं, तो उनको खाना खिलवाते थे कि वो हम लोग को पढ़ाए नहीं, और हम लोग हंसते थे. But as you grow, you realize, that the Maulvis are coming from a very poor section of our society. They had the disadvantaged people. They have gone to madrasas to be educated. They have come out with the only thing that they know is how to teach the religion. And they do not know it with any kind of enlightenment or progressive thought. For them, the book is the book, and that is it. And there's no interpretation to the book. People like us, I blame us. I blame us who have got all the best that the country had to offer over the years, where we got all the best of the jobs. We've got the best of education. We did everything that we've got everything as we could in the years after partition. And we are the ones who deserted this community that we are all talking of now. We completely deserted it. We allowed the madrasa system to continue. We allowed, without it bringing into modern education. My uncle, my chacha, Sayyid Hamid was one of the few people who did take out caravans to do something there. But we all sat somewhere else and didn't do anything about it. So I feel that the people, the Muslim majority has been let down by the few who got the spoils of independence and aligned themselves with the ruling classes and not with our people. And I don't mean that we should have thought as Muslims or thought as non-Muslims, but we definitely did have a duty and a responsibility that you can see with the Sikhs. They changed the community around. They are as conservative. They wear the conservatism of the religion on their sleeves, but they're so progressive in their thinking, in their attitude towards people, in their generosity of spirit, and in their courage. We were not able to do that. And we allowed, and we also participated in all the governments and all the media that made a fool of the Muslims. We had 15-point programs. We had 11-point programs. We took the Maulanas out around in our cars to get votes for us. We used the Muslim to get the vote of those masses without doing anything for those people. Anything. I mean, today we are in that position, our people are in that position, because today the Dalits at least are fighting for their rights. We are only talking. So I really feel sometimes very upset that we were not able to do what we should have done to get the Muslims on power. and told governments, as the governments went on, our ministers in government, our scholars, our vice chancellors, our journalists, our lawyers, we never turned around and told the government that what are you doing? You're just talking, it's jargon, it's rubbish. You've done nothing. So then when a party comes and says appeasement, it works. But that appeasement has been for us, the 5 jobs that we've got. The poor masses, which is 99%, 98%, have got nothing of it. They've been actually pushed further into the that's where I feel we have been wrong. We have done wrong. And I don't believe in Muslim leadership. I don't believe in Hindu leadership. But I do believe in community service. And I think we should have done that.
Yeah. This is
Shiva
something
Sahiba.
very, जी हाँ.
मोहम्मद अहमद साहब ने वर्चुअली हाथ नहीं उठाया, लेकिन वो बार बार मैसेज कर रहे हैं. ही वांट्स टू, वतन समाचार से हैं, ही वांट्स टू आस्क हिम.
जी, मोहम्मद अहमद साहब, please ask your question. Are you there? Ahmed Saab, are you there? You might have left. We have already overshot our time like by 10
अहमद
minutes.
साहब अपना जरा अनम्यूट कर लें, आपका म्यूटेड है. अब ठीक है जी, नहीं अभी म्यूटेड है. मोहम्मद अहमद जरा अनम्यूट करें.
I don't see him on the screen also. Do you see him on the screen?
No, he's there. He is on the screen, but
Okay. We have one hand from Mr. Sameer. Sameer Saab, can you unmute yourself and ask the question? Yeah, please.
Sure. Thank you, Shiba. I have a question to Ms. Seema. Why a corporate world is doing to media what you said they are doing? Let me illustrate my question. You said corporate world controls media and they are saying what corporate world wants to say. Now that is creating, disturbing the social harmony. That is going to disturb business. You see that today French Prime Minister is talking about India and the struggle on the street. So this is going to damage the image of India, which is going to impact the foreign investment, and that is going to impact the corporate world. So why really corporate world is doing? I'm unable to understand this.
Very obvious, because they're business interests, and the business interests are so heavy, and the ones who are doing it are the ones who are totally dependent on those business interests, and the government controls that. So if you want favors from the government, you want your business to succeed, you want to become the richest man on Forbes, you want to grow your company, and you don't want to destroy it, because if you don't really do what you should, what the government wants you to, then you can also be on the other side and find yourself being discriminated against where business favors are concerned. So the corporate is definitely the most, always been, the most, what should I say, the most cowardly class in our country. The corporates are the ones who are the first to cross over, because for them, business and their interests and their money only matters more and more. I always say, and I'll say it here, that by being owned by the corporates, the journalists had changed our character. We were supposed to be irreverent, question everything, curious, courageous, honest, brave. And what have we become? We become the same faces as the corporate guys. We are not questioning anymore. We are not irreverent. We are cowards. We lie. We don't speak the truth. We hide our money. That's what we've become. Because we have been influenced to the extent by the corporate character to this point. And that is why I'm always saying it's a nexus. The corporate started working, it is after the emergency, when they realized that the media can be controlled, but not by government censorship, because it created an international stir even more than it created a national stir. They decided that the control will come from the corporates and through the temptation of money. And as television came and we started creating celebrities, we were told that we are just journalists, we are messengers. We don't have a face, we don't have a byline. We are people who bring the news to you so that you can act on it. We go to the poor and to the marginalized. Because their voices are not heard, we bring that voice to the corridors of power. That is what our job is. But we became celebrities. And because television made us celebrities, we started working with all the institutions of power, whether it be the army or whether it be the civilian top brass or whatever. We wanted to be with the rich and the powerful. Many of us became lobbyists. We took money from lobbyists. We became almost very, very close to governments. We started doing because we wanted to be seen with these people. We forgot that our strength lies in our ability to be faceless and to do our job dispassionately. So the corporate and the politician of the day, the ruling establishment, have a very, very close relationship. Have always had it, particularly have always had it during the freedom struggle. But then society was all, you had the Goenkas and the Birlas who were part of that whole thing. But they were doing it with a sense of mission, because there was a sense of mission then. But as the system got more and more corroded and corrupted, the relationship between the politician became less. The ideology disappeared, idealism disappeared, and straight money relationships determine this nexus. So you have the nexus of the politician and of the ruling establishment and the corporate and the media. And we're all in it together. And the one who controls us is doing it for his business interests.
Yeah, you said it. Irshad Hussain Saab, please ask your question, and then we may go for the final comment from Khalid Ansari Saab and Amjad Khan Saab. Irshad Hussain Saab, please unmute.
Yeah, I've unmuted myself. Assalamu alaikum. And my question is very straightforward and brief. I see a lot of good things being talked about. Now the action, I would like to come to the action part. The so-called common progressive Muslims. What actions we should take, number one. Number two, there are two-pronged approach, which I could understand from this thing. First is, definitely we have to improve ourselves, and a long discussion have been held on this, that we have to improve ourselves. Okay, that's one part. Another is how to improve our impression. On that, there will be a lot of chatting also in our Global Council, that we need to do something, some engagement with media, with people who are not non-like-minded people. So I'd like to just straight away say, can we not meet the people who are simply doing Muslim bashing? Can we not just approach them, people like you, the people in this August Assembly, great people, So some of us can just go and talk to them. Hey, why you are doing this? Let's try that out. This is my request. Somebody can approach Mr. Surya, for example. Tell him why you're doing this. If people of this caliber will go and ask him a question directly, I'm sure something, कुछ तो शर्म आएगी उनको, कुछ कहेंगे भाई ठीक है ऐसी बात नहीं. This is my question.
That's a decision you have to take. Whether
some of us should meet.
You think if it will work?
Somebody from the Global Council should meet. Somebody from the stellar people that we have here. I don't want to name any of you, because everybody's great people out here. In this group, somebody can go and I'm willing to be part of it and ask them directly that why in all your speeches, irrelevantly, you're talking about Muslims, you're talking about Pakistan, you're talking about so many things which are not relevant. Please tell us, what do you want from us? Directly.
मेरा तो बस एक इसमें आंसर है that I think that Muslims should stop being defensive. We are too defensive. We have to understand what's going on and then decide what we want to do. But we should not, Muslims meaning anybody who's any Indian, actually, I should say. The defensive is the wrong way of approaching issues, which doesn't mean you should be offensive. It means you should be strategist.
But the point is that they are not available to the people. They are not available to the media also. They just address to the mob and just leave. they are just not available to any of the media people, the genuine people who are going to ask questions on economy, on defense, on diplomacy, on so on. So that is one basic difference between the earlier ones and this dispensation. Okay, वतन समाचार से अहमद साहब हैं. अहमद साहब आप दिख रहे हैं, आप पूछ सकते हैं अपने सवाल.
अस्सलाम वालेकुम. मेरा सवाल ये है कि जैसे मैडम ने कहा कि समवन इज टेलिंग पप्पू, तो आपने देखा होगा कि जिस तरह से पिछले 5 सालों में एक प्रधानमंत्री के तौर पे लोकतंत्र में सरकारों को कंडम करने का सबको अधिकार होता है, लेकिन जिस तरह से प्रधानमंत्री की व्यक्तिगत छवि को लेकर के बहुत सारे ऐसे शब्द कहे गए जो नहीं कहे जाने चाहिए, शायद आप एग्री करें या डिसएग्री करें. मैं ये जानना चाहता हूं कि आपने डेमोक्रेसी की बात कही. डेमोक्रेसी को बचाने में विपक्ष का भी बहुत बड़ा रोल होता है और सिविल सोसाइटीज का भी बहुत बड़ा रोल होता है, जहां तक मैं समझ पाया. इन दोनों के रोल को किस तरह आप देख रही हैं, और जिस तरह आप मीडिया की बात कर रही हैं, डिजिटल युग में मेरे ख्याल से नेशनल इंटरनेशनल जो सो कॉल्ड नेशनल मीडिया कहा जाता है, उसकी बहुत ज्यादा अहमियत रह नहीं जाती, जहां तक मैं समझ पा रहा हूं, क्योंकि हर आदमी को राइट टू स्पीक है, वो बोल सकता है और उसके लिए संविधान में धाराएं और सारी चीजें तय हैं. तो आप इन सारी चीजों को किस तरह देख रही हैं? एक तरफ सोशल मीडिया का जो पॉजिटिव यूज नहीं हो पा रहा है, या डेमोक्रेसी में जिस तरह से विपक्ष का और सिविल सोसाइटीज का जो रोल होना चाहिए, और जाहिर सी बात है कि जिस तरह से प्रधानमंत्री की व्यक्तिगत छवि को, ठीक है डेमोक्रेसी में आप सरकार को कंडम करिए, पूरा राइट है, लेकिन प्रधानमंत्री को किस तरह से आप एक मतलब फेंकू, और इस तरह की जब आप शब्द कहे जाते हैं तो इससे भी कहीं ना कहीं एक भारतीय होने के नाते लोगों को तकलीफ होनी चाहिए. मैं सोचता हूं कि आप इससे कुछ कहेंगे.
जी बिल्कुल. 2 चीजें हैं. एक तो एक तरह का ह्यूमर है जो चलता रहता है और हमेशा चला है, और ये आज नहीं है, कल इंदिरा गांधी के खिलाफ भी था और राहुल गांधी के खिलाफ अब है और राजीव गांधी के साथ है, वो जो चल रहा है कि नहीं. पर मुझे लगता है कि जो पब्लिक डिस्कोर्स है उसमें तहजीब हम लोग को लानी चाहिए. कोई जरूरत ही नहीं कोई नाम लेने की और फेंकने की, उससे बल्कि आपका जो भी आर्ग्यूमेंट है वो कमजोर हो जाता है और वो स्ट्रेंथन नहीं होता है. सोशल मीडिया में खासकर ट्विटर, मैं उस पर जाती ही नहीं हूँ, क्योंकि आई ऑलवेज बिलीव कि एक बहुत टॉक्सिक स्पेस है. जो भी ट्विटर पे आता है वो दूसरे को गाली देने आ रहा है, दोनों तरफ. आप ये मत कहिए कि खाली प्रधानमंत्री को कहा जा रहा है. जो अल्फाज खासकर हमारे विमेन कॉलीग्स को कहा गया है और क्या क्या थ्रेट्स किए गए हैं और क्या क्या कहा जा रहा है, वो कोई कम नहीं है, बहुत ही खराब है. तो वो मैं नहीं कहना चाह रही हूँ कि कौन ज्यादा है कौन कम है, पर जैसे गांधी जी ने कहा, एन आई फॉर एन आई मेक्स द होल वर्ल्ड ब्लाइंड, और मुझे वही प्ले ऑफ दिख रहा है ट्विटर पे. तो अगर हम लोग आर्ग्यूमेंट्स करें, रेजिस्टेंस करें, कोई चीज अगर नहीं पसंद है उसको कहें, तो वो गाली के साथ कहने की जरूरत ही नहीं, और किसी को पर्सनली अटैक करने की जरूरत ही नहीं है. जो हम लोग देख रहे थे बॉलीवुड में, सबको आप पर्सनली अटैक कर रहे हैं और सबके खिलाफ लोग बोल रहे हैं और बड़े बड़े मंत्री भी बोल रहे हैं, ये सब कहने की जरूरत ही नहीं. आप डिस्कोर्स को ऐसे लेवल पे आ गए हैं कि बिना गंदगी के और बिना एक दूसरे पे चीखे करके हम डिस्कोर्स ही नहीं कर पा रहे. तो इसीलिए मैंने कहा कि एक तो डिफेंसिव नहीं होना चाहिए, एक अपनी जबान को साफ रखना चाहिए, और जो आपके आर्ग्यूमेंट्स हैं उनको स्ट्रांगली प्रोजेक्ट करना चाहिए बिना डर के, और फिर आगे देखिए. पर ये कि हम नैरेटिव, हमारा नैरेटिव वो हो जो उनको काउंटर करे, या जिसको भी हम कहना चाहें उनको नहीं, हमें अपने आप में सहमत रहना चाहिए. विच इज वाई आई वाज टॉकिंग अबाउट कि मीडिया को इंस्टीट्यूशन बनाइए, कि जो भी गवर्नमेंट आए कि इस तरीके से जो हम लोग पिट रहे हैं, ये पिटना खत्म हो जाए. आज इतना पिट रहे हैं, उससे पहले पिट चुके हैं, बीच में स्टेट्स वाले हमारे जो रिपोर्टर्स हैं उनके बारे में आप लोग को नहीं मालूम कितनी बुरी हालत होती थी उनकी भी, और हो रही है. आज दिल्ली में हो रहा है, बड़े बड़े स्टेट्स में हो रहा है. तो ये चीज को इंस्टीट्यूशनलाइज करके हम लोग को रोकने की कोशिश है कि हम मीडिया एज एन इंस्टीट्यूशन शुड बी प्रोटेक्टेड एंड अकाउंटेबल भी हो और रिस्पॉन्सिबल भी हो. विदाउट अकाउंटेबिलिटी हम नहीं प्रोटेक्ट कर पाएंगे अपने आप को. वी हैव टू बी अकाउंटेबल टू द पीपल ऑफ इंडिया, नोबडी एल्स.
Do your homework well and stick to your ideology.
सॉरी सीमा जी, एक सेकंड प्लीज. लेकिन जिस तरह डेमोक्रेसी को बचाने में विपक्ष का और जो सिविल सोसाइटीज का जो रोल है वो तो कहीं नजर नहीं आ रहा है ना। आज पब्लिक तय कर रही है कि किधर जाना है, नहीं जाना है।
मैंने वही कहा था शुरू में कि कई चीजें होती हैं। एक तो आपका रूलिंग एस्टेब्लिशमेंट होता है, एग्जीक्यूटिव, लेजिस्लेचर और आपका जुडिशरी, जो इंस्टीट्यूशंस ऑफ डेमोक्रेसी हैं, स्टैट्यूटरी, उसको कंट्रोल करना कभी कभी अगर आप ज्यादा, हम लोगों ने देखा है किस तरीके से कंट्रोल हो भी सकते हैं, पास्ट में भी देखा है, प्रेजेंट में देखा है और कल भी देखेंगे। पर जो लोग नहीं कंट्रोल हो सकते, बट दे आर इक्वल चेक्स एंड बैलेंसेस। लीडर ऑफ द ऑपोजिशन इज को कॉन्स्टिट्यूशनल स्टेटस दिया गया है, पार्लियामेंटेरियन स्टेटस है, इसलिए रिकॉग्नाइज किया गया है कि द रोल ऑफ द ऑपोजिशन इन अ डेमोक्रेसी, सबसे बड़ा चेक एंड बैलेंस वहां से आता है। मीडिया जो स्टैट्यूटरी नहीं है, फोर्थ पिलर ऑफ डेमोक्रेसी, सिविल सोसाइटी। तो ये कहना कि वो कर रहे हैं वो नहीं कर रहे हैं, ये भी गलत है। जो कर रहे हैं उनके साथ उनको स्ट्रेंथन करिए।
जी बिल्कुल। अंसारी साहब, खालिद अंसारी साहब।
सीमा जी, आपने कहा कि जर्नलिज्म इसलिए करना चाहिए कि जिससे कि जो समाज के जो पिछड़े हुए और जो मार्जिनलाइज और डिसएडवांटेज ग्रुप्स हैं या लोग हैं, उनके साथ जो है पूरा न्याय हो। और एज ए व्यूअर जब हम टीवी पे जाते हैं तो वहां देखते हैं कि वहां उसके न्याय की तो कोई बात ही नहीं हो रही होती है, और उसके अलावा वहां पर जो नैरेटिव, जो डिबेट हो रही होती है, उससे तो उसको न्याय तो दूर की बात है, बल्कि हमारे जैसी जो गरीब कम्युनिटीज हैं, जो डिसएडवांटेज कम्युनिटीज है, उनको डेमोनाइजेशन का काम वहां पे चलता है, और वो भी डेमन्स के द्वारा वो डेमोनाइजेशन का काम वहां किया जाता है। तो मेरा सवाल आपसे ये है मैम कि आपका एडिटर्स गिल्ड इसमें किस तरह से हेल्प कर सकता है? इसको कैसे हम, हाउ वी कैन फाइट विद दिस थ्रू द एडिटर्स गिल्ड आल्सो?
अब आपको उसका इंतजार करना पड़ेगा। हम लोग कोशिश कर रहे हैं कई चीजों की। भाई पूरी टीम है तो मैं आप देखेंगे, ज्यादा कुछ कोई नहीं कर सकता है, पर कुछ छोटा मोटा जो भी कर सकते हैं उसकी कोशिश रहेगी।
Very well. We have Mr. Anjay Khan with us, and we are already overshot our time. So, Anjay Khan Sahab, for your conclusionary remarks and official thanks to Ms. Seema Mustafa.
थैंक यू शिवा जी। पहले तो मैं वेलकम कर लूँ सीमा जी का। I'm so sorry मैं लेट ज्वाइन कर पा रहा हूँ। आज वो किसानों का आप देख ही रहे हैं कितना चल रहा है, तो 1 घंटे का CNBC 18 पर एक प्रोग्राम था, तो आई कुड नॉट स्किप दैट। थैंक यू सीमा जी। पहले तो कैलकुलेट मैं अपनी तरफ से कर दूं, आज मैं आपको इन पर्सन डिजिटली देख पा रहा हूं कि इससे पहले फोन पे फॉर दी चैलेंजिंग असाइनमेंट जो आपकी जिम्मेदारी पे आया हुआ है। 2-3 चीजें इसमें मैं, एक तो जो खालिद साहब ने पूछ लिया कि एडिटर्स गिल्ड, में इसमें ये समझना चाह रहा हूँ कि जहां पे मीडिया का बहुत एक्सेसिवली वन साइडेड रुख, कंटिन्यूअसली एजेंडा ड्रिवन लग रहा है, क्या क्या ऑप्शंस हैं डिजिटल और प्रिंट मीडिया के लिए जहां पे इफेक्टिवली कंप्लेंट्स लॉन्च हो सकते हैं और कुछ उसका सोल्यूशन निकल सकता हो? जो बॉम्बे में अर्नब के खिलाफ हो वो तो एक डिफरेंट लाइन पे था, लेकिन यूजुअल कोर्स में क्या क्या ऑप्शंस हैं हम लोगों के पास रिड्रेसल की?
जी, अभी तो आपके पास खाली कोर्ट्स है ना।
अच्छा, जो
जो स्टेटस में हम लोग आ गए हैं उसमें कोर्ट्स के अलावा कौन आपकी बात सुनेगा? अगर आप कोई किसी के खिलाफ, प्रेस काउंसिल था एक जमाने में, एडिटर्स गिल्ड एक वॉलंटरी ग्रुप है, ये आया है लाइक वॉलंटरी ग्रुप, इसमें 200 एडिटर्स फ्रॉम अक्रॉस इंडिया हैं, और ये 1978 में फॉर्म किया था, इसलिए कि एक तरह का वॉचडॉग रहेगा, गाइडलाइंस इशू करेगा फ्रॉम टाइम टू टाइम और अकाउंटेबिलिटी के लिए स्ट्रगल करेगा। इट वाज नॉट अ रिड्रेसल बॉडी, इट इज मोर अ वॉचडॉग बॉडी। पर इसमें आज के चैलेंजेस में, आज के वक्त में काफी चीजें कंसिडर की जा रही हैं, बट इवन सो ये एक छोटा वॉलंटरी है। अगर आपको रिड्रेसल चाहिए, देन देयर वाज द प्रेस काउंसिल ऑफ इंडिया, जो पहले काफी पोजीशंस लिया है उसने। और अगर आपने किसी खिलाफ, आई रिमेम्बर जब 1992 में बाबरी मस्जिद वाज डिमोलिश्ड और जागरण ने कहा लेड अप टू दैट वायलेंस, और बिल्कुल झूठी हेडलाइंस के साथ, आई थिंक इट वाज जागरण, आई एम नॉट,
यस इट वाज जागरण, दैनिक जागरण,
they took a position and then they had to print an apology. उससे ज्यादा कुछ नहीं, बट एटलीस्ट फ्रंट पेज पे उनको अपॉलॉजी पब्लिश करनी पड़ी। ये रोल होता था प्रेस काउंसिल और ऐसी ग्रुप्स का, पर खत्म हो गई है। प्रेस एसोसिएशन भी काम ठीक से नहीं कर रहा है। जितनी यूनियंस थी जो वर्कर्स और वर्किंग जर्नलिस्ट का के लिए काम करती थी, उनकी राइट्स के लिए कि उनको सैक नहीं किया जाए, उनको पैसा मिले, उनके वो सब खत्म और डिसमेंटल हो गई है। तो आप आज जो मीडिया इंडस्ट्री को देख रहे हैं, ये बहुत डिसमेंटल्ड इंडस्ट्री है। इसमें अब जो भी करिए आप, एक ड्रॉप ऑफ द ओशन ही रहेगा, पर कम से कम ड्रॉप तो आना चाहिए। अभी तक तो ड्रॉप्स भी नहीं थे। तो कोशिश है कि रीस्ट्रक्चर, सबकी कोशिश है। लोग बहुत वरिड है, जर्नलिस्ट बहुत वरिड हैं कि क्या हो रहा है मीडिया को।
इसमें दैनिक जागरण का रोल फिर से भी वैसा ही था। अगर आप दिल्ली राइट्स जो अभी हुए हैं फरवरी में, आप देखें तो 15 दिन तक कंटिन्यूअसली अगर कोई पढ़ता तो हिंदी एडिशन में इस्टेब्लिश कर दिया था कि 100% मरने वाले हिंदू, 100% प्रॉपर्टी डैमेज हिंदुओं की, 100% इंजर्ड। उसी ग्रुप का जो उर्दू एडिशन है उसमें रिवर्स वाज, विच मीन्स हिंदी पढ़ने वाले हिंदू ज्यादा है, उनको इंसाइट कर रहा था दैनिक जागरण के आप बदला लो, एंड उर्दू पढ़ने वाले मुसलमान ज्यादा है, उनको इंसाइट कर रहा था। तो दिस इज क्लियर केस ऑफ वी आर कंटेम्पलेटिंग कि क्या इतने बड़े अखबार को अकाउंटेबिलिटी पे लिया जाया जा सकता है क्या?
जी, बट लीगली इज द बेस्ट।
छोटा सा और मुझे लगता है इस पे वी शुड बी मूविंग नाउ, इससे ज्यादा और लेट ना हो इस पे अगर एक्शन लेना है। ये जो मीडिया में मोनोपोलाइजेशन हो रहा है कि अब जब कारपोरेट्स उसको कंसोलिडेशन, क्या मोनोपोलाइजेशन जैसा एक, अभी तो ओलिगोपोलिस्टिक सिचुएशन कह सकती हैं, बट इट इज मूविंग टुवर्ड्स द मोनोपोलाइजेशन ऑफ द मीडिया इफ यू ओनरशिप पैटर्न। इसके चैलेंजेस से कैसे डील किया जा सकता है?
वही मैं कह रही हूँ,
बढ़ जाता है जब नंबर्स होता है मीडिया में और बड़े बिजनेसमैन ओन करते हैं, तो बिजनेसमैन को डराना आसान होता है, जिसके पास कुछ नहीं होता उसको डरा पाना सरकार के लिए थोड़ा मुश्किल।
बिल्कुल, ये आपने आंसर कर दिया जो क्वेश्चन इससे पहले था कि कैसे कॉर्पोरेट जो कंट्रोल कर रहे हैं, क्यों कर रहे हैं? इसीलिए कर रहे हैं, डरपोक हैं, कावर्ड्स हैं, हमेशा एस्टैब्लिशमेंट के साथ काम करना चाहते हैं, क्वेश्चन करना नहीं चाहते हैं। ये कैरेक्टर है कॉर्पोरेट का। जब हम लोग कॉर्पोरेट कहते हैं तो ये नहीं मतलब हम किसी का नाम लेकर के कह रहे हैं, ये एक सिस्टम है। कॉर्पोरेट्स इसी सिस्टम में एग्जिस्ट करते हैं और उन्होंने मीडिया को कंट्रोल करके हमें भी वही चेहरा दे दिया और हम भी उन्हीं की तरह हो गए। वो हमारी तरह नहीं हुए, हम उनकी तरह हो गए। तो ये बहुत बड़ा चैलेंज है और ये चैलेंज इतना कह सकती हूँ कि पीपल आर वेरी अवेयर ऑफ दिस चैलेंज। ये नहीं है कि पूरी मीडिया जो आप देखते हैं वैसे ही है, ऐसे नहीं करेंगे। आई डोंट
भी देख सकते हैं नेगेटिव साइड से भी, जो रीच करती थी ओपिनियन मेकिंग
जी,
प्रिंट से शिफ्ट हैंड डिवाइसेस, एक फ्रीडम।
जी, आपकी आवाज शायद,
Yeah, your voice is breaking up, Khan साहब, some network issue.
अच्छा, नहीं ठीक है। सो लेट मी, कह रहा था कि प्रिंट मीडिया है वो डिक्लाइन पे।
Your question is not audible to us.
but I think it's saying that about the media being on decline, but it is on decline, but it's not dead. Print people still have काफी उसमें इज्जत काफी बची है वर्ल्ड में। जो अखबार लग रहे थे 10 साल पहले, न्यूयॉर्क टाइम्स बंद हो जाएगा, गार्डियन बंद हो जाएगा, ये सब अखबार जो बड़े थे, they've all had a resurgence. तो ये इंडियन मीडिया में भी होगा।
And the impact of written word, that it is there forever and anyone can, go back, revisit and come back with the solid proof. That is something very, very tenable, which electronic media doesn't enjoy. It doesn't. It doesn't enjoy. So that is something very important about print media. And we should continue to, engage with print media in a more serious and, as Seema said, that in a very confident manner, with your perfect homework also, with your knowledge and everything. So that is one thing. I think we have already, utilized all our time and the grace period as well. Seema, thank you so very much for being with us tonight. And we are at an epochal time of our national life where media itself has become a cause of concern. The way media is creating crisis within democracies, and particularly in this democracy, we are all concerned. We should all try to work together in making the desired change, in making it more responsible and responsive. And thank you so very much for giving us so much of time. Seema, I really look forward to something very positive, something solid coming from the Editors Guild now, since the elections are there, people are there, and your team is there. All the very best. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. It was a joy, and I learned so much through the questions. Thank you.
Thanks a lot.